Victor, Linsanity, Jeremy Lin, the new point guard for the New York Knicks, has taken the sports world and, in fact, the political world by rage, thus Linsanity. What's this all about?
Well, I mean, I think it's very interesting, Andrew. I mean, here you have this fellow who was didn't even get drafted into the NBA, played college ball, was shuffled around from team to team, played in the development league, and then had a shot on the biggest stage in sports, Madison Square Garden in New York, and has been leading this New York Knicks basketball team. So as you've said, it's been a story not just for the New York press, but then it moved to the national press, and now it's completely international. This story about this kid who came from nowhere and now is a huge international sensation.
So Lin's become a big star in China too, and it's been controversial because he has Taiwanese roots.
Right.
Can you tell us about that dichotomy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. First of all, I mean, the guy's American, right? Because he was born and raised in Palo Alto, California, went to Palo Alto High School. So he's American. But of course, he's ethnically of Chinese origin. His grandmother was from mainland China, but his father is from Taiwan. So he's really Taiwanese American. The Chinese, of course, have completely taken ownership of this fellow because he's been successful, and have talked about him as being the pride of the hometown from where his grandmother came from, and really have adopted him as their second Yao Ming in many ways. Although the reality, of course, is that he's not at all Yao Ming. He's not a Chinese national. He was not raised in the Chinese state basketball system program, which is very different from the way he was raised. Lin was raised in the United States playing basketball. Arguably, if Lin had been a Chinese national, he'd probably be playing for one of the Chinese team, probably the state-backed People's Liberation Army team today. Not nearly as well educated as he is today, and not nearly as well balanced, and clearly not nearly as religious a person as he is today growing up as an American.
What does it say about the Chinese that they've so latched on to Linsanity and Jeremy Lin's star?
I mean, I think the message is very simple, and that is China likes people who succeed. They respect and they worship success in many ways. And the Chinese had no idea who Jeremy Lin was before he started playing basketball and leading the Knicks on this winning streak. And so in that sense, I think China really disowns those that it doesn't think are winners. But it really respects those who are winners. A very good example of this was the tennis star, Li Na, a Chinese woman who played in the state-backed tennis program in China, was playing of international caliber, and basically in 2008, 2009 said, I'm sick of this. I'm not doing this anymore. She broke out of the system, hired her own coaches, decided her own tournaments. And it was a big embarrassment for the Chinese because this was someone who was bucking the program that they had built for tennis. And they really disowned her until she won the French Open, until she became the first Asian woman to win the French Open. And then the Chinese adopted her and said, oh, what a wonderful story, pride of China, pride of Asia, all this sort of stuff. So I think we learn a very simple message from this, which is that the Chinese really do sort of cling to and try to take ownership of success, even if those things may have been embarrassments for them before they became successful.
How does this play into, or does it play into, U.S. China relations?
It's a good question, and I think the message does carry in one sense. We've just had the visit of Xi Jinping, the next leader of China. We gave him a very, very good visit, treated him really as a head of state, the sort of treatment that we would normally give to sitting heads of state. But at the same time, we complained a lot about things that China needs to do better, whether it's on currency issues, rebalancing the economy, Syria, Iran, North Korea, human rights, you name it. And while I think we need to keep pushing those issues with China, I think the very simple lesson that Linsanity shows us is that Chinese don't want to hear complaints from people who are not winners. They will listen to and respect winners. And so I think in that sense, the United States needs to continue to push these issues with China, but we also have to, in many ways, compete and win with China, because that's the way they'll listen.
Do they now regard us as something less than a winning country, maybe even a losing country, because we've fallen behind in certain things because they own a lot of our debt?
Yeah, I think, I think in polite company, most Chinese will never say this. But I do think that within certain circles in China, there is a view that the United States is a declining power, and that many of our complaints about China are, we see it as a criticism of them in terms of their taking on a more responsible role as they rise in global status. I think they see our suggestions really more as complaints of a declining power that is trying to block China's rise. Now, I think that's an incorrect interpretation of what the United States is doing, but that's clearly, I think, the message the Chinese are receiving. And unfortunately, that means that the future of U.S. China relations is going to be quite difficult.
Fascinating how sports can play into international public policy.
Yeah, really, it's really interesting stuff. Yeah.
Victor, thanks so much for your time.
Sure, my pleasure.